Today's watch has got something you just don't see every day, at least not for the price I can afford. Well, we're here. Today we've got the anOrdain Model 1. I don't know if I mentioned it, but I attended the Wind-Up Watch Fair this spring in San Francisco. And I saw this gorgeous watch laying on the, under the lights there on the table, and it just glowed like a gem. And I kept going back to it. I made up a lame thing saying that I was going to have to buy it for my wife, but all along I was like, oh dude, I'm going to have to get me one of those. This is the second time that I started recording this video. The first time I was going to tell you how much you needed to hurry if you were at all interested in one of these things, in ordering them, because there was only about 15 of them left. And before I could hit the done button, they sold out. They had a planned run of these, limited to just 300 watches, but due to some bad luck or something, they ended up not having the parts for all of the watches, and it only ended up being somewhere around 250. This is a special watch designed and manufactured by folks determined to put out a better watch than anyone else that's even close to the same price point. The first special thing is the vitreous or porcelain enamel dial, which is essentially powdered glass sifted onto a metal and then melted in a kiln. When it's carefully cooled, it has the depth and beauty like stained glass. And like the stained glass windows you see in those ancient churches, it will look the same for the next 1,000 years or so, give or take. This enameling process is difficult, and it takes a lot of time and care, which is why you usually see enamel dials only on very expensive watches, and not watches that sell for $1,200. While that's not cheap, just think how much you would pay for any other watch that had a handmade dial. And there's a lot more to this watch than just enamel. This is the most readable dial I have ever seen. With the double-domed crystal and the shiny enamel, there are plenty of reflective surfaces to go around, and despite the 6 layers of AR coating, you will get reflections. I think it's because the design is so wide open and uncluttered, though, there just isn't anything to distract you from reading the time. The anOrdain name on the dial is cleverly substituted for the 9 o'clock marker, and the vitreous and British-made texts are completely out of the way. The whole thing, subtle and uncluttered. I worried at first about these unique and very thin hands, but they catch the light from pretty much any angle. If there's much light at all, you can tell the time. Here's a loom shot. So many watches these days have the logo, company name, a date window, and 4 lines of text telling you about the watch. They're like a billboard. I think most watch companies could take a lesson or two from these young Scots at anOrdain. At 37.2 millimeters, this is actually smaller than what I consider optimal for my 7.5-inch wrist. But the Model 1 presents much larger on the wrist because the bezel is very thin. The actual visible diameter is 33.3 millimeters, whereas my 41 millimeter Seamaster's dial is only 30.5. That's nearly a 3 millimeter larger dial on a watch that is 4 millimeters smaller. The lugs are a sensible 18 millimeters, and overall lug span is 45.2 millimeters, and that's 12.7 millimeters thick. If I were filling out a Christmas list, I would ask for thinner, but this is perfectly fine. And it's the price you usually have to pay for an automatic movement with a display caseback. The angled bezel and the domed sapphire crystal are nice touches, and they help it slide under cuffs and whatnot. Especially whatnot. Further extra miles they have gone to are the relief cut into the case and the curvy lugs that allow the band to snug up close to the case without causing any wear on the leather and leaving no unsightly gaps. The case itself has been hardened, so the surface of the stainless is at 800 Vickers. The only Vickers I knew of was like a World War I machine gun or something. But it turns out that it's a hardness scale and is equivalent to 62.5 on the Rockwell C scale. What that means is the surface is harder than most knife blades. I'm guessing that would make it pretty hard to scratch. The only real humbug I have about this watch is what I consider to be the undersized crown. Kinda uncomfortable to wind, and setting isn't as easy as it could be either. The ergonomics of crowns is important to me. Yes, I'm a nerd that way. There is, of course, a risk of having too big a crown that messes with the proportions and overall aesthetics of the watch, but I believe it's a risk worth taking. Accuracy on the watch is superb, and in fact, each Model 1 is hand-regulated. Believe it or not, Lewis from anOrdain actually contacted me and asked me which wrist I wear my watch on so that he could regulate it accordingly. Have you ever heard of a watch company doing that? Mine is -1 second a day face up and pretty much dead on crown down. In actual use, I have found it to be right at -1 seconds a day. Of course, you don't only get a watch, you also get packaging and stuff. Mine came with a finely illustrated book, and the watch itself was packaged in a decent cardboard box, which contained a real leather zippered case and also 2 straps with quick-release spring bars. They all smell great. The case is useful for protecting your watch, and the straps are very high quality. I've only used this suede strap so far because it fits like a glove and looks like $1,000,000. It surprises me how much I love this watch. If you've watched my previous videos, you know that I'm pretty much a dive watch guy who loves his watches in the 40 to 42 millimeter neighborhood. So here I am gobsmacked by a dressy 3-hander that's less than 38 millimeters. I normally qualify my reviews by how much value the watch has for the price, and I've already said that I think this is a good value for money watch, but I'd go beyond that and say that this is a good watch at any price. Accurate, classy, and beautiful with attention to detail, incredible customer service. The only things you don't get is name recognition and a long history, neither of which I think makes any difference in day-to-day wear. I'm really sad they sold out before I could get one of the iron and cream dial Model 1s. Oh baby, that's one sec. anOrdain just announced their Model 2 field watch, which is definitely worth a look. They are currently working on a Model 3 to be announced later this year. I have high hopes for the future of anOrdain. Great people, great watch, and a great future for Scottish watchmaking, I bet. I've probably gushed enough, so thanks for subscribing to A Dude and His Watches. What? You're not subscribed? You need to fix that. I don't know what they have in the water up there, but Scotland must be a special place for them to come up with a watch that's this good.